Hey everybody, and welcome back to Dude's Brunch. It's a podcast about pop culture, internet garbage, and black coffee. I'm your host, Taylor Olmstead, and with me this week, it's Tyler Reed. Tyler, what did you have for brunch today?
Hey teens, how's it going? Today for brunch, I had the same bullshit I always have, but I went to a new place on Friday because I had a half day at work, and I went to a new place called Sacred Beast, and it's sort of like an all-day diner kind of thing. And so there, I had some hash browns that, as noted by the menu, says has neckbone gravy, chicken, and fried egg. It was pretty good. I didn't have any of their mixed drinks. I wasn't getting that excited. But they also apparently have some good burgers. Denny and Spenny Burger Search recently went there. I can't wait to hear that episode. Shout out to that podcast. But yeah.
You know, I don't know how I feel about having chicken and eggs together in the same dish. Something about that just feels psychologically wrong to me.
You're probably right.
Did they make the chicken or the egg first?
Probably the chicken. I think it takes longer to prepare.
Always asking the deep questions. It's Sean Evans. Sean, what did you have for brunch today?
This morning, I went through my cereal collection and I got rid of it. So I had cinnamon flavored Life cereal.
Wait, so you did like the Purge cereal edition today?
Yeah, kind of like that, but not like the movie The Purge. Just the regular kind of thing that you do to your closet or something. And for me, it was the closet of cereal. Like, I was looking at all the different cereals, and I was like, strawberry dried oat flakes? No. Plain Cheerios? See you guys, it's been great. Peanut butter and chocolate Cheerios? Oh, God, this was a bad choice. Goodbye.
So many peanut butter and chocolate Cheerios. If you had to equate them to something in your wardrobe, what piece of clothing are chocolate and peanut butter Cheerios?
They're like old exercise clothes that don't fit anymore. At a time when you got them, you were like really jacked about being like, I'm changing my life, starting new today. But then after about 3 or 4 times using them, you're like, man, this was too much for me to handle. It was a good idea, but not anymore.
It's okay. My item that's like that is a pair of patterned crab shorts that I have worn very little because, as it turns out, you can't wear a patterned shirt and also patterned pants.
Sean, our little Tyler's all grown up.
What if you had like a shirt that had like little sticks of butter as the pattern?
I'm in. I'd wear that shirt.
Would you wear it with your crab shorts?
You know what? I think I'd make an exception specifically for that.
Always a fan of patterned clothing. It's Janet Ford. Janet, what did you have for brunch today?
Hi. Today, Josh actually made eggs the way my mom used to make, like back when I was a little kid. She takes like a piece of like a lunch meat ham, and then you fry that, and then you put like an egg sunny side up on top, and you just fry it all in one pan. So he made that for me, which was pretty awesome. And then we also got turkey bacon from Trader Joe's, and I love Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's cannot do any wrong except their turkey bacon. It is disgusting.
Did you get the thick cut stuff?
No, it's just we just got like the package. I think I just hate turkey bacon. I think that's the problem, was that I don't like turkey bacon. But
interesting.
Yeah, so we're a pork-only household, I guess. But yeah, so that was my exciting morning, was getting riled up over turkey bacon.
I know Sean is a big fan of turkey bacon.
That's why I asked in particular what kind of turkey bacon it was, because I thought Trader Joe's had like a thicker turkey bacon that had like 8 slices in the package, and that wasn't that good.
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to think what it was. I just remember it was like, it didn't get crispy. It just was like a very thin slice of Spam. Like, that's the texture of it. And I was like, I'm not about this life.
That's kind of the experience I had. Because I bought like the bottom of the barrel stuff from like Kroger. And it like, I had it like once or twice. And then like I didn't seal it in properly. And I was like, well, that's okay. It kind of went bad, and I was like, well, that's fine. It didn't taste very good. So I feel like you gotta get top-end turkey bacon.
Only the best.
The hell is top-end turkey bacon?
I don't... Not one that costs like $2.
Oh,
turkey bacon costs $2.
Anyway, I'm your host, Taylor Olmstead, and for brunch this morning, I had scrambled eggs with peppers and onions and bacon in them, recording from my parents' house outside of Cincinnati, Ohio this weekend, so I had the run of their giant kitchen and still made the same basic brunch that I make at my own home. So I guess there's that. Speaking of my location, though, went to Kroger today to pick up a few things for dinner, and I walked through the beer aisle and discovered that they had in Bombers the new Rhinegeist Shake It Records collaboration beer for yesterday's record store day. So, impromptu beer review. Rhinegeist and Shake It's Slow Jam IPA. It's just all right. It's a pretty solid IPA.
Is it like fruity because it's called jam at the end of it?
Yeah, it's got a really like fruity floral finish, but the majority of the taste is actually pretty like malty and biscuity, like an ale. It's kind of, I don't know, it's different. It feels like a less aggressive version of Truth, their flagship IPA. So I don't know, I'm enjoying it.
When you say less aggressive, do you mean less like... Because I can't do hops. Like, hoppy stuff, because that's why I avoid IPAs. I can't do the hoppiness.
It's less hoppy than that, for sure.
Turn up.
I just feel like at some point you're like, well, if you just take all the hops away, like, just have something else. Just don't make it...
Yeah, well, that's...
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still hops here. It's just less than their normal hops.
Sure.
In other follow-up, longtime listeners of the show may be aware that Sean is a proponent of a cultural theory called post-cool. Sean, can you give the listeners a brief recap of what post-cool is?
It's like cool before cool, because you don't need to be cool because you are post-cool.
So the reason I bring this up is I found a tweet this week and shared it with the team. The tweet is from James T. Green, and it's an image. His caption is, "Fuck cool 2018." And the image is a screenshot of a text conversation where one person says, "Cool is an emotional straitjacket." And the next person says, "Right, cool is fucking overrated."
Oh, no. It's happening. The revelation.
I think this is it, guys. I think Sean might have actually been right all along. Maybe cool is an emotional straitjacket.
Thank you.
If only Sean had written some more think pieces about it. He would have been the forefather of post-cool. Now some hack will take credit for it instead of him.
even well, if you're on Think and you're writing a think piece right now, you're already a hack, okay?
Sean is post-think piece.
Think about it.
Now that should Sean just writes wild conspiracy theories instead. Which is really what a think piece is.
And I Xerox them poorly over and over multiple times so that way it all blurs together.
That's the truest truth. In fact, as Tom Hanks would say, that is the true.
I thought that was Jerry Smith.
In some heavier, sadder follow-up, I feel like we have to have a slight moment of silence for Swedish DJ Aviici, who was found dead this week at 28. I still remember when Tyler showed me Aviici for the first time, and then we listened to Levels entirely too many times, along with the entire Western world for about a summer. Wasn't a fan of all of his stuff, but I have to say, really interesting DJ, and horrible that he died so young.
Definitely a huge impact, at the very least. I distinctly remember listening to that song way too many times when I worked at Sonic. Which really puts that in a place for you.
I forgot you worked at Sonic.
Me too, sometimes.
Have a supersonic day.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
Did you have to say that to people?
I mean, no, but frankly, the fact that it's not their slogan is terrible.
Wait, Sean, are you not familiar with the backstory here? This is a good podcast anecdote right here.
No,
Tyler, why don't you tell the folks the story of Have a Supersonic Day?
I don't know if I do. What's there to tell? There's Sonic.
My understanding was that whenever you had a difficult customer and you wanted to say mean things to them, as you handed them their food and they drove away, you sarcastically told them to have a supersonic day.
You know, I don't know if I ever did that, but I would prefer to have that memory be like ghosted into me. That is what I did.
It's a great little gesture of on-brand passive aggression.
Yeah, next time I'm at Sonic, if someone tells me that, I'm going to be like, "Oh, you passive-aggressive motherfucker."
I mean, the thing to remember is that when you ask someone if they want a lot of peach flavor in their drink, you got to give them like 75% peach flavor and like 25% tea, or else they'll yell at you and tell you to be fired.
Just go fire yourself, Tyler.
No, you're right. I'm the asshole.
Just pull yourself out back, have a frank conversation with yourself. Listen, your performance has really been dropping. I'm sorry, I meant to make it work. No, really, this is like the last straw here. You were fired. What are you talking about? I'm fired. No, your performance doesn't justify your existence here anymore. Get the hell out of here. I'm sorry. It's too late.
That was incredibly realistic, Sean.
Yeah, that was like a full, like, 3-man skit right there.
I mean, I feel like Sean's probably fired at least one person. He just walked away, so he can't rebuttal. But I feel strongly at some point in Sean's career, he has fired at least one person, and so he's had to have that difficult conversation before.
Sean, have you ever fired anybody?
I can't talk about that.
Have you ever stopped putting someone on the schedule?
I also cannot talk about that.
It's okay. It'll all be in the memos in 6 months. Well, you know that if Janet Ford's on, it's time to talk about anime. And this week, against our better judgment, we let Tyler pick another anime. I just want to remind you all that the last time we did this, we watched an anime where a beautiful girl turned into a weird hamster creature whenever she ate junk food. And I think he's really, like, raised/lowered the bar this week.
Wow.
Tyler, can you describe Devilman Crybaby in, like, 2 or 3 sentences for the listeners?
Okay. Shit. Devilman Crybaby is the latest version of the long-running story of a boy named Akira who, against his own will, gets possessed by the demon Amon in a brutal ritual by his friend Rio, who then takes on the powers of both the human and the devil, in which he then tries to save the world from its own destruction. Meanwhile, everyone he's ever known and loved will feature turmoil through these actions and may or may not ultimately die in a cycle that will endlessly repeat forever.
Okay, you see, that explanation makes it seem almost like a normal anime.
Yes.
But what I witnessed...
Yeah, no, that was... I mean, I almost kind of sounded interested in that for a minute. But then I remember watching it, and I remember that I was not interested in that at all.
Okay, when I watched it on our big-ass TV.
Hell yeah.
With the door open. With all of that going out into... There's a park. There was like a children's soccer game. And meanwhile, I was watching pretty much anime porn on my big ass TV.
There's a name for that.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna go there. I wasn't gonna bring up the H word this early in the podcast.
Okay, so
What
can
the
I
fuck
give,
did I watch?
now that I've given the brief synopsis, well, can I explain some backstory of this to make this make slightly more sense?
I mean, I guess. I don't know how you could redeem this, but go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just give some insight into this. So this was originally like a manga, and it had several like anime like interpretations, and it was created during a time when animation was like really in like a really gory direction, and like it was almost like overly like brutal for the, almost not necessarily for the sake of being brutal, but like to kind of push the envelope. And so a lot of those things kind of carried over, you know, through the different series. And so then this one is kind of like taking kind of like what it's always kind of been, which is kind of gory thing, kind of modernized it and brought it up to like a new level. So like in some ways it's sort of intentionally grotesque, and that's kind of the point because of the subject matter, I think, of the show kind of makes sense. So that's it. I just want to say that like that's kind of the point.
That was, when I was watching it, all I could think about, I was like, this is very eroguro, which is erotic and grotesque. Like, there's literally a term for it.
Oh,
which
thank God.
just blows my mind that there's a word for it. But that's all I could think about. So I'm glad you mentioned that, you know, I figured it was part of that genre, but yeah, that was something. Oh, a lot of boobs.
Yeah, so having not watched a ton of anime, watching
Poor
this
person.
on the big TV in my parents' living room while my
God, I'm
mom was
sorry.
wandering around the house doing housework. It was an uncomfortable experience, to say the least. She did take a nap about 10 minutes in, so she wasn't awake for the majority of the grotesqueness. But I watched one episode, and then we went for a hike, and I came back this afternoon, and she was like, "Are you going to watch the rest of that show that Tyler's making you watch?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to do it upstairs, though."
I'm sorry, Taylor's mom. I'm sorry. I don't care about those kids. They'll see it eventually. Taylor's mom, she didn't deserve this.
Apologize to those soccer moms.
She works hard. Jeez.
Sean, what was your viewing experience like?
And moving down the sliding scale from public to parents to significant other, I watched it with my fiance, and wow, what a conversation starter. There was a lot of questioning. There was a lot of us looking at each other and saying, "Why is this a thing? What is going on here? Who is the devil?" It seems like everybody was the devil for a minute. Then
no one was the devil because they were dead.
There was some weird short skirt high school action going on there that was really kind of putting weird things on the screen. I was like, God, this is weird.
Yeah, I think if it wasn't so grossly just extra in the sense of upskirt panty shots and lots of boobs and lots of just seeing people do it in anime format. I feel like if they had the storyline actually I found kind of interesting, the plot of there are all these demons and then there's obviously these two friends who are close, but one seems to be doing he wanted his friend to get, I didn't fully get all of it. That brought me back, but the awkwardness of everything else going on made me not want to continue watching it.
Sure.
The story itself, I found kind of interesting in a what's going to happen next kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
There were Josh walked in while I was watching and was like, "What the fuck are you watching?" So yeah, I agree with Sean from a conversation starter point, but there were a lot of the high school girl portion of it creeped me out too. Made me a little uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
But my viewing experience, I watched this all by myself in my room with headphones on, but then I also watched the first episode with Catherine, so...
And what did she say?
What did Catherine think about it?
She said that she was probably going to watch the second episode, and she was kind of interested to see what was going to happen.
Okay, I feel like this show suffers from the same kind of thing that shows like maybe Game of Thrones have, where they try and get your attention by making a really loud, intense pilot episode where there's like shit tons of sex and violence, and then things start to calm down and they get more into the plot in the second and third episodes. This is a pretty common thing, right? You make the pilot really intense to sell the show, and then it gets kind of watered down in further episodes. And I definitely felt that here. I was glad that you made us watch the first two, because like Janet, I was really interested in the story and the themes. But you don't get any of that in the first episode. The first episode is all exposition and then grotesque sex and murder.
Right.
No, the first episode was like what I imagine a hentai to be like, with a slight storyline.
So for the, this is what they would consider like a shonen anime, which is like a battle anime, like a Dragon Ball Z kind of thing, where it's like kind of like a monster of the week. You have a bad guy, you fight it, you kill it, things happen. But for the sake of they condensed it like pretty down to like 12 episodes, I believe. So they kind of like have to smash a lot of stuff in there all at once. So it does sort of go into more of a, it's still pretty grotesque. let's just put it, but it doesn't, it's, I would say the highs and lows are, it's a little more expected. They're probably a little more evened out rather than like extremes.
Yeah, I watched episode 3 as well, actually. And yeah, it does mellow out I mean, but now that I think, no, they killed a bunch of people in that one too. So
I mean, there's no shortage of death.
yeah.
So, all right. So I think the question here is, I think just I almost want to just spoil the storyline, but I don't know if that's going to be the most appropriate thing to talk about right this second, because I feel like I almost want to talk about, like, likes or dislikes of what we saw so far. Like, because I do feel like it'd be interesting to give you guys, like, the perception of what happens in the story, and then see how that colors it, but I don't know if that makes a big difference to you or not.
Well,
I'm down.
I guess let's start with the aesthetic, right? Because we can talk
Sure.
about that without spoilers,
That's fine.
and then
Yeah.
we can do spoilers later for
Okay.
people who want to watch it.
That's fine. That's probably a good idea. But yeah, so, I mean, what did you think of how it looked?
I guess if I can start, I'm one of those. I'm very particular on anime styles. So I'm not really a fan of the kind of I don't even know what to call that aesthetic. Kind of reminded me of like a washed out painting a little bit, or like kind of just like I don't even know how to describe it. But I'm not a fan of the artwork. I think the artwork is really pretty, and I appreciate it for what it is, but I didn't like it in an anime format. But I also don't like the 3D anime that's starting to come out as well, so take my comment with a grain of salt.
That's fair. I don't really
Grain of
particularly like that either.
Yeah.
Not having a ton of anime experience, the thing that really got me about this show is that it feels too anime like maybe the Dark Knight films feel to superhero movies, where it's in this kind of dark, gritty space and everything is like 10 times more gray than it needs to be. And there are a lot of shots where there's stuff going on screen, but you can barely see what it is because the colors are all so dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand like the effect they're trying to get with that, but having seen it in movies for so long, and I feel like we're finally moving out of that phase, particularly in superhero movies, it didn't sit right with me. It felt very dated.
I can think of 3 or 4 animes that I've ever seen in my life, but this show has inspired me to rewatch Superjail, if you guys are familiar with that, which is almost seems like the same thing, but a very Americanized version of that.
I was gonna say, I
Except
feel
it's-
like you guys liked that show, and that was a pretty grotesque show as well.
I am on the record as not liking Superjail, but I know
okay.
Sean's into it, so that's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Okay. I misremembered that.
But it's watching this Devilman's grotesque, almost seemingly senseless violence that goes on all the time reminded me of Superjail. And then I saw that Adult Swim put it back on their app, so I've been rewatching that a little bit. But I didn't mind the animation style that much. I thought it was kind of nice.
I have to say, I loved the music in this show.
Oh yeah, I figured.
Yeah, that
if
was good.
anything, that was gonna be probably what Taylor would be after.
Yeah, the 80s analog synth feel of the show, along with like the 80s looking sports cars and motorcycles, or that whole time period aesthetic, even though it clearly takes place in modern times because the high schoolers have smartphones. It was really cool to have that kind of like new wave 80s vibe. I really appreciated that.
Went ahead and dropped the original Devilman illustration, his original design there for everyone to see.
I hate that. I just hate it. I hate that you've shown it to me. I hate that it's on my computer right now. I just hate everything about it.
Why is he just wearing underwear and a mask and wings?
Because it was the fucking
it's not
70s, Sean. Give him a break.
No, you know what that looks like? That looks like a Victoria's Secret ad, but for
Oh,
men.
you're so right. What would the male Victoria's Secret be?
This.
I mean, probably a lot like that.
Yeah, but what do you call that?
Steve's
Yeah, I was
shout.
like Victor's Secret. I don't know.
I was gonna say something like Charlie's Surprise.
Oh, that makes it gross.
That's gross.
But anyway, what I think, I'm super into like the really like loosey goosey like animation style where it's like you feel like you're not like everything goes like really off model. You know, it feels like it's just kind of drawn, like almost everything's kind of individually done. It's really almost kind of sloppy in a way. I kind of like just drawing what feels right rather than like like it feels like we've been going into a lot of like sort of like Jana was saying, like there's like 3D animated animes that are kind of coming out now that are kind of like they're a little bit more stiff. They can do some cool things, but it's not as exciting kind of visually. It's kind of like you take like the Simpsons intros, like the old one versus the new one, where like I've seen like side by sides where like Marge is like whipping her head around and it's like everything's like distorting and like really kind of moving. You can feel it, whereas in the newer one it's just kind of like more of a flat transition. Like nothing really kind of like is very accentuated. It's very rigid. And so I'm kind of like any kind of attempts to kind of make something, you know, kind of feel more vibrant and alive through those kind of animation styles is really exciting. So I was, as you would imagine, very excited about it.
I will say, in that vein, the character movements in this show feel very fluid, like you were saying, Tyler. And I think part of that is to do with the subject matter, right? Like, we talked already about the extreme amounts of sex in this show. Like, just desensitizing amounts of sex. But all of the characters move in these really fluid motions, which I'm sure is symbolic of that. And it does feel very different than a lot of anime I had watched in the past, which felt very like rigid and like freeze frame running shots and things like that. There's none of that in this. There's a lot of like constant motion.
And this is so one of the kind of memes that kind of came out of this show was that there was always the joke where there was the Naruto Run where you put your arms behind you like straight out and you just like run kind of like with your arms kind of flailing. And so Devilman Crybaby enhanced that meme, made a new one with the like the weird like devil run where they like full body like clawing themselves forward. That was in episode 2. That was kind of like the key feature there.
Yeah, that was actually one of my favorite moments in episode 2 when he runs like that and he looks like a wild animal and then he realizes he's doing it and like stops to walk. I thought that was really funny.
I didn't like that. I don't know. It was like, so okay. So Taylor, going back to your point about how everything was really fluid, I like that in the club scene because like as the drugs were starting to kick in and you know, everything became a lot more fluid and like you said, I think there definitely is like a symbolic kind of thing going on with the fluidity of the characters and when they are more rigid versus when they are more fluid and how that's playing into the plot. Something about that run, I don't know why. I don't know if it was just like, I was already just kind of like, it's not that I didn't like the show, but I was kind of like, wow, I really kind of hope this episode ends during the first one with all the, well, it was just so much sex. And then, I think, like, when that run came, I was like, of course he's got a fucking annoying run. Like, of course he can't just fucking run like a normal. And, like, I don't know. That was kind of my take. But I did like the scene where he was running and then he realized and then he stopped. That, I did appreciate the humor in that. But when he was just running, I was like, man, why can't we just have, like, a normal anime with, like, a normal run? Like, would it be too much to ask?
Says the girl who watches an anime about figure skating.
Okay, don't bring Yuri on Ice into this, okay? I emotionally can't handle
Don't
talking.
drag Yuri in on this. He didn't do anything wrong.
He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't. Why would you do this to me?
I think while we're talking about stylistic choices, this seems to have been something that people really had a problem with. But there's this scene where the sort of I guess we'll call them gang members. I don't know what else to call them, but the teens they rap in Japanese and it gets translated. Lots of people said that it was kind of lazy that they didn't just have someone translate it into English. Does anyone else feel like I personally actually really liked that they rapped in Japanese because I had honestly never really heard like how Japanese like sounds in like rap form, and I thought that was really cool. It was it kind of almost felt like a stylistic choice. And I thought it was really enjoyable, but lots of people thought it was lazy that they didn't just have like someone like an English rapper doing a unique version for the English release.
Well, as somebody who speaks Japanese fluently and is a fan of mediocre rap, I loved that. I thought it was so cool. But then again, I also am not the target demographic to which your question was, because I understood it, but and Japanese rap sometimes is just like god awful. Like, I'm sorry, God, they just some of it is just not good. But I was really impressed by what was in the show. I really enjoyed it. So sorry, I wasn't the person to answer that, but I went for it.
I think you're actually the perfect person because you understand both, and so you could interpret what which you would prefer to hear, what it sounds like in both ways, or at least you could understand it in almost in two contexts.
There were The problem with translation is that there are always going to be jokes or like play on words that just don't translate well. And especially like in rap or like even in humor, that's something that I think translators have. That's probably one of their biggest hurdles in any project is how to get the concept across, get the topic across, and then get any little things like that, which as a native speaker you would pick up on. So I see an argument for both. On one hand, the translation gets what they're singing, like, what they're rapping about, it gets that across, but it also misses some of, like, the clever things that they said, which, as, like, a native speaker, you're like, oh, shit, that's awesome, but it doesn't come across in a translation, so, I could see that argument. I think that if they did have, like, somebody actually changing it to, English, like an American or English-speaking rapper dub over it, that would be one thing. And it would get, I think, maybe some of the subtleties from the rap across, but, I mean, I don't know. That then enters a translation versus dub realm, so.
Right.
But I'm okay with either or.
For me, it's really interesting because I've recently gotten really interested in how hip-hop and rap have moved to other cultures, and I've been trying really hard to listen to more non-American rap music. And there's a really strong UK scene with grime and things like that I had been familiar with, but I started listening to French rap recently, and like I don't understand anything they're saying, but the flows are just so different because the language is so different. And so hearing this in this episode got me really excited. And I think just dubbing over it in English with an English rapper is the very, like, American-centric view of hip-hop thing to do. Which, I mean, granted, like, hip-hop is an American creation for the most part. Like, it's a very American thing in a way. But I'm excited to see it expand to other cultures and to see different variations on it. I really enjoyed that scene, and I wish I could have understood what they were saying in the Japanese.
Well, I think that to say that hip hop is like an American thing, I feel like I mean, Janico, of course, correct me as I'm wrong, but like for example, like jazz, like Japan wanted, like when they found jazz or whatever they discovered, they wanted to play the best version of like the American jazz that they were hearing. And so, like, I don't think at any point they're ever, like, trying to, like, necessarily make something that was, like, almost, like, uniquely, like, Japanese. So it's, like, it feel like it would kind of be the same for hip-hop, where they're, like, this is, we like how this sounds. We want to make our own thing because we like how this works. So I feel like, you're right, that it feels almost insulting to be, like, no, we need to make this be in English because... only English speaking people, we're the only people that rap. But like as you said, it's all over. Like it's clearly something that's translated far and wide. So,
have you guys seen on Netflix Dirty Delicious? Or is that what it's called? It's like that show where they go around and anyways, there's a part in it where they go to Japan to visit some dude's pizzeria. And the host is like, if there's one thing, it's like, you can dedicate your entire life to something, and then a Japanese man will find it, get interested in it, and then do it better than you could ever hope to do it. And I feel like if that's one thing that Japanese culture is really good at, it's finding things and then putting their own twist on it. And that's something that I've always really enjoyed, is like the fusion that comes out of Japanese culture. They find something and then they like it. And I think rap is exactly just one of those things as well. So no, I definitely agree. I think if you're going into it with the sense that the Japanese can't rap as well as an American, then yeah, then I'm like, F that. No, make sure it's in Japanese. But, some people just, like, Josh hates reading subtitles. Hates them. So I think for me, that's the sub versus dub argument, I guess.
Is that your official stance, that it's bullshit?
Which one? Dubs? Because dubs are bullshit, but...
All right. Well, I know your stance on that then. All right.
Plan for WWDC like it's your birthday?
Do you have strong opinions on Snapchat filters?
Are you tired of 3-hour-long tech podcasts?
Then you should check out 10-Minute Tech Talk. It's a show Emily and I make every single Tuesday where we catch you up on a week's worth of technology news in just 10 minutes. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Google Play, and basically anywhere else you can get podcasts. All right, well, I think it's time to fire off the spoiler horn and start talking about the plot here. So if you're planning on watching Devilman Crybaby, you should go ahead and skip to the next chapter in your podcast app of choice, and we'll do some internet garbage there. But Tyler, why don't you run us through the rest of the plot here, and we can talk about the story and our thoughts on it.
Right. All right, and also for... Full disclosure, this entire show was difficult for me to watch, but I insisted on watching it because, well, it was on Netflix, and there currently is no other English dub of anything Devilman, so, except for something really, really shitty they made in the 70s. But anyway, so, this shows, the story of Devilman has actually gone through several versions, and they're all basically the same. And so what happens is that, the story is that Rio is actually Satan himself, and so he's there to sort of he's there to sort of create the final conflict. He's there to kind of create the war between humans and demons. And so what ends up happening is that during like this big like festival, this big like athletic festival, there's a guy that's another Devilman. There's multiple Devilmen, but Akira is the Devilman. But so Devilman like gets loose, and then so Rio like encloses them in this like arena and just starts slaughtering people. And so then Rio broadcasts to the entire world. Don't ask how that happens, but he's like, demons are real, and Akira, this person is he's the Devilman, and you need to kill him. And so he basically betrays his friend. And so, which then causes the world to like go into like this apocalyptic like situation where everyone's really paranoid and like they're fighting each other. And he's like, anyone can become a devil. You got to be careful of everyone. And so it's almost this police state. And so everyone's like really hidden and like tries to like stay like away from like, being out in the open too much. And so it basically more or less what ends up happening is that either the people they love either turn into demons and they're killed, or they get killed by people who think they're demons. So that means their parents, the kid, like Miki, everyone dies.
Wait, which one's Miki? Was that the girl?
Yeah, Miki is his love interest and also his oldest friend. She gets murdered and her remnants get stuck on a pike. He sees it and is furious. And so then there's this final galactic battle where like the humans are like fighting, like firing rockets against demons, and Devilman like brings all the other Devilmen together and like tries to fight off like the bad demons. And so the end is Rio in his Satan form, laying on this galaxy almost, like it's just like this abstracted background, and he's just like, it's finally over, it's happened, like, and he's just like talking to Akira, who you barely can see, and it's slowly revealed at the end is that he's dead. Like his body's just like cut in half, and he's just been talking to dead Akira this whole time. And then like he's like, why aren't you talking? What's wrong? And he turns over, he sees that he's dead, and then he just starts crying. And so it's just like, and this cycle is like sort of like doomed to repeat itself over and over again. And like, so like Ryo almost knows this. It's in some way, like he's just been reincarnated over and over again. And he's forced to live like the cycle of living and dying, forcing his friend, his only friend in the world, to become this person that will inevitably fight against him and lose. You know, and this is sort of like almost like God's like sick prank, you know, in some way, for like his punishment. And so like it's fucking intense.
I need a beer. What the hell did you just...
Yeah. And it's...
Okay.
This plotline is really interesting to me, and I felt this especially in the second episode, and now that you tell me the ending, I'm really interested in it, because it feels like more Judeo-Christian than any anime I've ever heard of or watched. It has a kind of like Calvinist vibe to it, which is a school of Christian theology where there is a predefined number of people who are going to get into heaven, and God has already decided who they are, and so nothing you can do on earth will determine whether or not you're going to get into heaven. It's purely God's will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this feels like very Calvinist in a way. And I would just be really interested to see, like, the intellectual, like, ancestry of this story. Like, who wrote it and what were they reading when they wrote it and everything. Because, like we were just saying, like, the themes of this are really heavy and they're really interesting. But it's not really a common way to think about theology or morality.
Right. And like a lot of the big problem is that I mean, Devilman is an anti-hero in itself, and he does things that aren't good, but he's sort of like, well, I guess I am the good guy. I have to be in some way. And he, even in the end, he doesn't want to fight against his best friend, who is also the literal demon, like Satan himself. And this specifically this show, or this story has inspired other series. I think most namely in Judeo-Christian tone is Neon Genesis Evangelion, which has lots of Christ-like images in it, and is really also kind of devolves into like an Adam Eve, like end of the world, like the earth is reborn again and nothing you can do matters kind of situation. So it's like, it's sort of always been maybe like a slight undertone that like a lot of animes kind of like try to do. Well, not all of them, but you know, like some of them, it's certainly not an uncommon thing.
So I've got a question about the plot. Okay. So I get in the very beginning of the first one when the bird dies and Akira's crying, and then Ryo says, and then he's like, you're crying, and Ryo's like, no, I'm not, and then it's like, it took me forever until I understood what he meant, or blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. So I get that at the very end, when he dies, and then Ryo starts crying. Mm-hmm. Do they explain why Akira cries throughout this? Because in episode, like, what, 2? Was it 2 when the superstars, like, they're watching that interview and everyone's making fun of him, and then Akira just starts, like, bawling? And they're like, why are you crying? Do they explain why he does that, or is that just like him, he just cries? Well,
that's a unique trait to this specific series. Mm-hmm. And I think the idea is to intend that he's just a more empathetic character than other past versions of himself, and it kind of leads to like, there's a little bit more character development in this series than the other versions, because like I said, it really has its roots in like battle anime, where it's mostly just about you fight a monster, you know, you have lots of cool fight scenes, and that's it. You know, wash, rinse, repeat for hundreds of episodes. You know, but this is intended to kind of supposed to have more emotional impact, I think. And so I think it's just to symbolize that he can kind of like sense that he's feeling what others feel.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about that, because first time and the last time all sync up, but the middle part I was like, well, why the hell are you crying? So, okay, well, that's good. Well, that was a show.
Yeah.
All right, Sean, any thoughts on the plot and themes of Devilman Crybaby?
Sean says, I don't give a fucking shit. I don't care.
That's not exactly right, but I don't really have any observations on
That's
this.
fine. To be fair, I just told you the end of a movie, and you're like, oh, well, that certainly was the end of a movie.
It's really kind of out of my wheelhouse entirely. So
Right.
So I guess final question that I'm curious about for those of us that haven't finished it, are we going to watch through the rest of it? Spoiler alert, I am not going to.
Yeah, fuck no. No. And I'm glad I found out the rest of it. I was interested. If you hadn't told me, I probably would have Googled.
Sure.
But then I would have had that in my Google search history, so I don't know. I would have probably Googled what the end of the story was, because like I said, the story is interesting. Just the way it was presented wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely over the top and gratuitous and not something I would ever watch, but like I said, I was interested in seeing kind of more about this story, because now I can just go back and I can watch the subtitled version of the older version, which I feel like I would probably be more palatable for me as just sort of like a battle show with lots of cool demon fights, so...
Well, it sure was some anime. Because I've been traveling this week, Tyler really took the reins and did a lot of heavy lifting, and I seriously want to thank him for that. Tyler has also sourced our piece of internet garbage this week. Tyler, what do you have for us?
All right, so the title of this video is NBA star Rudy Gobert with One Piece shoes. And if you aren't familiar, One Piece is a popular anime. It's a little interview here.
I hate how she pronounced his name. It's Luffy. Excuse her.
Okay, so Tyler, can you explain what's happening here for our listeners?
All right, so this is an interview, or it's not an interview. This is I'm assuming this is during a basketball game. I wouldn't know. But this lady's just talking about this NBA star Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert, and she's just talking about his shoes, which happen to have Luffy from One Piece on them, and she clearly doesn't understand anything about what an anime is, who this character is, and is really stretching, really reaching for just anything to connect this player and this character together. She says he's a captain on a ship, and he's described as a loyal leader, which I'm sure is literally within the first sentence of his Wikipedia article. And she says, well, that's him. That's Rudy. He's a loyal leader.
Yeah, like, that's, like, one way to describe Monkey D. Luffy. But, like, not even the fact that he literally stretches. Like, he's got superhuman power. She just glazed over all that. She was like, yeah, he's a captain on a ship. I was like, well, that is one way to put that entire, like, 15-year-long series. It's just, it's Luffy, he's a captain on a ship, whatever.
Her I guess, sidekick was just like, yeah, he had no idea what was going on. He's like, what happened to superheroes?
Sean, as our resident NBA expert, is Rudy Gobert a leader / a captain of a ship?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, let me watch the video one more time. I forget what team he plays for. I know they're playing the Spurs, but...
I think it was the Utah Jazz.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, definitely. They're actually doing pretty good right now in the playoffs, so... Yes.
There you have it, folks.
I will say, I think this is, though all, like, the announcer not knowing what's going on aside, I've noticed this cultural change where we're a lot more open with anime. Like, I remember in middle school, like, and I think even in high school, like, I know I didn't talk about anime with you guys, because that's what, like, weird kids liked. And I remember once in middle school, like, there was a kid, and he was in the locker next to me, and Shonen Jump fell out, and he, like, borderline had a meltdown over the fact that, like, he was like, don't tell anybody about this. I was like, yo, dude, like, it's cool. So I feel like there's become this cultural change where anime is it's like kind of cool. It's kind of chic. And like you see people walking out with stuff like this, or you see people with like t-shirts, and you're no longer like the weird kid to do that. So I think that personally, I think is really awesome. And just like a weird cultural shift from what I'm used to, because I remember like I said, like growing up, like anime was literally like, I didn't tell anybody I liked anime because that meant I was fucking weird. Or that was just the stigma of it. So it's cool to see something like this come out even like at an NBA level.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of sort of like Dungeons and Dragons, right? It also sort of has had a pretty big boom in popularity recently.
Geek chic.
Got that dude's brunch bump.
You know what? That's right.
You know, Janet's discussion, though, reminds me of when we were in high school, there was this recurring sketch on SNL called J-Pop America Fun Time Now. Do you guys remember this?
Yep.
So, there'll be a link in the show notes. The premise of J-Pop America Fun Time Now is that these two white college students are super weebs and are way too into anime, and their college TV station's faculty advisor, I think played by Jason Sudeikis, if I remember correctly, just like realizes how problematic everything they do is, and he just has to sit there and watch them because it's like mandated that a faculty member is in the studio with him at all times.
That was a good skit.
It was, and it was so cringy and awful, and I feel like we all knew those people. But I think, like you were saying, Janet, we're finally getting to a place where like people are more open about liking anime, but doing so in a less appropriative way than the J-Pop America Fun Time Now people of the world. Like, I'm sure those people still exist, but they not in the same way that they used to.
And it's not like mainstream anymore. Like you see like celebrities talking about anime. Like you see, it's no longer like, okay, like one time in 6th grade, this girl came up to me and she was fucking weird, which isn't a good way to start this segment. But like I remember like she would sit there and she found out that I was Japanese, and she was like, just, I guess, really problematic is the only way to describe it, but just like very fetishizing, and like kept trying to like get into Japanese, like she kept like trying to like outspeak Japanese with me. And I was like, yo, I've been speaking this language at home for like 15 years now at this point. Like, you're not gonna win. And all she could say was baka, which means stupid. That was all she kept saying to me. I was like, what the so like, you know, like that was your stereotypical weeb. And now I don't want to say weebs are cool. We're not. I mean, I'm a weeb and shit, I'm lame, but like it's cooler, I guess. We're less problematic.
I mean, just don't visit most American high schools is probably to keep that opinion. Well, I'm sure there's still kids that are wearing Naruto headbands.
High school, just the word, like high school is just problematic in its own right. So, yeah, no, you're right.
It was
high schoolers are problematic.
It was probably better that not every
anime.
high schooler had access to social media when we were growing up, because let's be real, we said and did some fucking stupid shit that I'm glad has been deleted forever, because MySpace.com is no longer a company. And don't at me, I don't care if it still actually exists. It's dead.
How dare you insult Tom like that? He was your first friend.
I unfriended Tom almost immediately. I didn't care. I don't give a shit about Tom.
And now it's time to round out the episode like we always do with a round of shameless plugs from the panel. We'll start with our maestro for the evening, Tyler Reed. Tyler, if people want to talk about anime with you, where can they do that?
Hey, everyone. I'm sure this will be our least listened to episode, but I appreciate you all coming out and showing your support to my bullshit trade ride. So you can find my design illustration work at towerdreed.com, and you can find me on the socials as TDR Design on Instagram and Twitter.
Sean Evans, where can the people find you online?
At Real Cash Otter. And when the Avengers is terrible, hit me up about it. Tell me about how you think superhero movies are overrated and that they clog up all the other movies. And spoil it for me, because I won't ever go see it, so...
Janet Ford, thank you for joining us. Where can the people find you?
Don't. I'm a closet weeb. I like talking about it here in this one very public forum. And other than that, I like to pretend I'm normal. So don't talk to me about anime.
So if
I'm just kidding. No, it's because every time I talk about anime, Taylor has to bring up Yuri on Ice, and he has to bring it up, and he has to rub it in my face, and he has to bring Yuri into this, even though he was completely innocent in all of it.
So Janet, if they see you, say, like in a park or another public place reading a copy of Shonen Jump, should they just look the other way?
Yeah, just don't acknowledge me. Don't even
just
look
give
at
her
me.
a subtle nod and then walk away.
Yeah. Don't. Yeah, no, it's guaranteed. If you see me reading Shonen Jump in a park, that means I'm probably having a mental breakdown. So please call 911.
Well, I have been your host, Taylor. You can find me on the socials at TC Olmsted. You can read my blog. It's tcolmsted.com. You can like and follow the show at Dudes Brunch. And if you really like what we do here, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or recommend us on Overcast. It really does help new people find the show. Also, we haven't had a review on Apple Podcasts in like over a year. So throw us some stars, homies. 5 stars. Nothing less than 5.
0 stars for your use of homie.
Other than that, we will talk to you again next week on another episode of Dudes Brunch.
Oh, I was gonna say I could see Janet wearing like a Santa Claus beard and a cowboy hat, reading it in a Starbucks, and nobody would know who she was.
Why do you people think so lowly of me? No, that's
Janet?
No, don't worry. That's
No, my name is
the most
Jan.
It's net. Don't look at me. Don't. Yeah, no.
Oh no, sir, that is not my name.
I'm Santa.
I'm Anime Santa Claus. I also am a cowboy. That's how anime works.
See you later, space cowboy.